Something is very wrong here.
Stool with Matt Nic.
You know, like when the Japanese, like maybe 20 years ago, started like really getting into like doing hybrid fruit and shit, and they started making like the square watermelons and all that sort of stuff. Like they came out around that sort of time.
Have you ever cut up and eaten a mango before it was totally ripe?
I don't think so.
I figured this out at the restaurant just accidentally because I had to make. We had like a mango salsa that we would do. And there was one day we were out and we needed more and we had these mangoes that were still kind of green. And we just went ahead and said, fuck it. And if you cut up, like I'm not talking super unripe, but like not quite fully ripe yet, where they're still kind of hard.
Sure.
If you cut those up and like cube them up, they taste just like sweet tarts. They're like a little bit sour.
Really?
Yeah, but they're great. Like I almost prefer mangoes that way now because like they're just it's like a candy. They're great.
I'm gonna have to try that out. Hell yeah, I'll buy a bingo the next time I go to town. Fuck yeah. I was thinking about that like a little bit just about all these things that we have available now too that we didn't have, like going back to when we were talking about our Midwestern casseroles just a little bit ago, and like that was we ate that way because that was like what was available. And I also think there was a lot of like you had a lot of canned goods at home, and those were things that were like passed down from like our grandparents, like going through World War II and stuff. So I'm kind of going all over the place, but I also heard recently this person was doing, it was a cooking show on NPR, and they went back to their like family house and they had their mom make something that they used to eat like weekly back in the 80s, and it had soy sauce in it, and they were talking about how like soy sauce was this really like exotic thing to be having like in the 80s.
I don't think I had soy sauce until I was a teenager.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm not trying to derail your story, but all the same, like as I never had any kind of like ethnic food, Chinese or even, like I never had Taco Bell until I was 16. Like my family just didn't do that.
Holy shit!
Yeah, so like I never had any of that kind of stuff, and when I discovered it, I was like, holy shit, that you can have something that's not gravy, which I love gravy, but but anyway, continue with what you were saying.
Well, that reminds me of. I got a story about how I grew up thinking that Miracle Whip was mayonnaise. I may have told you about this one before. Like, we always had Miracle Whip in my house, and I just always, like, thought that that's what mayonnaise was because that's what we had, and we called it mayo, and I just didn't know there was a difference. Fast forward to I start, like, working at McDonald's when I'm 14, and I learned from somebody else about the awesomeness of mixing mayo and ketchup to put on your fries, And so I take the gun and I put in like a squirt of mayo, and then I squirt in some ketchup, and I go and eat it. And I'm like, this mayo is the best thing I've ever had in my life. Why doesn't the mayo that I eat at home taste anything like this mayo? Because this shit is awesome, and that shit sucks. And then I realized that I'd just been lied to my entire life, that I thought it was mayo, and it was fucking the tangy zip of miracle crap.
Was there a certain brand of mayonnaise that McDonald's uses? Is it Hellmann's or is it something else?
It's probably Hellmann's. But the thing is like McDonald's makes everything themselves. So like you don't, like most restaurants, you get a box and it'll say, Hellmann's, or it'll say Hidden Valley Ranch, or it'll say, this Ore-Ida French fries, whatever. Everything at McDonald's is branded McDonald's. Like they make their own products. That's how they make so much money and make things like cheap. So, like, they may be getting it from a larger factory, but it's like Burlo getting their dog food, right?
Right.
Like, it's the same thing.
Right. Now I'm just remembering, I can't remember exactly what he said it was, but I think what Joel told me last week at his birthday party was they get in this like powdered mashed potatoes where the brand name I think is just Certified Food.
Oh, yeah. That's like the government. That's like the government subsidized big.
I just love that it's food. This is guaranteed edible.
We certified it. This is food. I mean, at the very least, somebody ate it and they didn't die. Mm-hmm. So it's food. Well, there's something interesting I always find. I've told you about how we get some of the meat for the dogs from a place out of Waldo, and that always just blows my mind. You know that it comes from there. And maybe I've told you this part of it too. But on the boxes it says like, "Do not feed the ruminants," like cattle and shit like that, right? But it's just supposed to be beef. Obviously, I don't know why you'd want to feed beef to cattle. Like, that's fucked up in its own way. But there's all these warnings on the box about, like, do not feed it to these types of animals. And I just always have this question, like, do they turn into, like, vampires or become, like, zombies? I feel like the way that the warning looks, that, like, if you were to feed it to these animals, it would be the start of the apocalypse.
Yeah. It is weird, like...
Vamp cows.
I still don't... mostly because I don't care. But, like, I haven't looked into that deeply, like, the reasons why certain foods are good for dogs and certain foods are not good for dogs and are good for this other animal or whatever. And like I've had customers ask me like, well, should my dog be eating this percentage of protein per day? And I just get to a point where I'm like, no, like I don't ask me. I'm not a nutritionist for your pet. Like ask your veterinarian. Like, I don't know shit about this. I'm just here to give it to you. So.
Yeah. I just deliver the food. You have to make the purchasing decision on your own. And especially because you're delivering, like, such a variety of foods, like, what are you going to say? Unless you're being company man, you're like, well, the best food for your dog is A&P. Like, you know, like, unless you're going to do that. Like...
Yeah, there was one day when I first started driving, TJ started up on that shit where, like, I made some comment and he tried to school me on, like, why certain foods are good for different dogs, and it just fell on deaf ears. I'm like, yep, okay, mm-hmm. Oh, really? All right, well, like, I made it pretty known that I don't care.
Well, like, right, so we finally got back our favorite method of feeding, and the only reason it didn't exist was because of the pandemic and the supply chain. We feed our dogs whole chicken leg quarters, just raw. So we go and we get, like, 100 boxes of 40, so 10-pound bags, 4 bags in a box. We'll go get, like, 100 boxes of those. Take 6 bags a day to cover all the dogs because we have about 40 right now. And literally just raw chicken in a bucket. They get water with a little bit of kibble and some juice just to, like, get them to drink the water to stay hydrated, because a lot of these types of dogs, they don't like to drink water unless there's, like, a little bit of blood in it, So we do that with, like, maybe a touch of meat, a little bit of kibble, but that's all about getting them water. Their calories come literally just go to the store, buy a bag of chicken. Here you go, dog. And, like, as long as the bones aren't cooked, they can eat the bones.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, think about it.
I was going to ask about that. I didn't know if you're able to feed them the bones or not. Because, I've heard that where, like, chicken bones can be dangerous for dogs.
If they're cooked, because they splinter. But, like, just imagine this. So, if dogs come from wolves, especially these dogs, like, are pretty damn close to wolves. You kill an animal. Did anybody take the bones out for them?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? And they fucking get off on it, too. Like, crunching those bones up and, like, having that piece of chicken to tear apart and, like, fucking, like, you know, like, really get after it. It makes them feel like they're in touch with their, like, wild side, so they fucking love it, you know? I mean, and it is funny, like, not to say that people don't need to, like, eat dog food, but we go through all these, like, measures and people, oh, can I do this and should I do this and how about this with my dog? Are those free range chickens? Or is it organic? It's like, dude, just fucking throw your dog a piece of meat. They're good. They're good. That's it.
I feel like that's what my mom is devolving into at this point. Like, now that I'm not calling my mother a dog. I'd like to be clear about that. But she is just like,
I didn't actually think that's what you were saying until you said that. I thought you were going completely somewhere else because I didn't think that that's what you were saying about your mom.
Just with the whole, like, her whole caveman diet of, like, well, I can't have anything that was available beyond caveman times at this point. It's like...
Oh, she's doing the paleo?
Well, paleo on top of, like, you know, she claims to have this, like,
paleo and cheesecake?
Yeah, like Hashimoto's and shit, like, which, like, I'm not talking shit, but it's gotten to a point where, like, you know, I can't offer her, like, a deviled egg, and she'll be like, well, is it a free-range chicken egg? I'm like, just fucking eat it.
That is the fucking worst of, like, when you just are doing the nice thing to, like, offer somebody some food, like, because you're just being, you know, a regular person who's trying to share with others and be, you know, kind. And I'm not saying this is, like, the, necessarily the dynamic between you and your mom, but, like, the dynamic if you just happen to meet a vegetarian one day and you don't know it and you start talking about food and all of a sudden you're, like, dealing with a 30-minute conversation of them telling you how much better they are than you because, like, they can't eat all these things that you can eat. Oh, my God, it's the fucking worst.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend that lives in Buffalo now, and she'll post pictures of her, like, vegan meals that she either gets or she makes or whatever. And I'm not talking shit here, but she posted a picture yesterday about, or it was a picture of this cheat meal, so to speak, of her vegan lunch that was in, like, Ethiopian bread, which I'd never even heard of. But for a solid 30 seconds, I couldn't tell what I was even looking at. It looked like a downward shot of, like, a pile of shit and vomit on a recliner. Like, it looked like a lazy boy with an old school floral pattern. Like, I could not figure out what the fuck it was until I was actually read the description.
I've got a friend up here. We met on Tinder, you know, saw each other a couple times, hung out. She's real good shit. Nothing happened. This was a couple years ago. And, at the time when we first met, she was a vegan. Well, I'm already giving up the end of the story by using the was in there, but I would give her so much shit because I'm like, okay, so that's great that you're a vegan, but you're in Alaska, right? So you want to talk about carbon footprints, you want to talk about, like, saving the earth. How much energy does it take to get you vegetables in Alaska in the middle of winter? We don't grow our own shit here, so, like, you think you're doing, oh, well, do you understand how expensive it is to ship beef and do this and this and this. And I know those things are more expensive because of the weight and the shipping constraints and whatever. Beef is very expensive. That's not really the point. The point is just, like, you're in Alaska. You're really, like, eating vegetables all the time. You're not, like, reducing your carbon footprint. If we're shipping you up your avocados from South America, like, all the way to Alaska, like, that's a pretty big fucking, you know, carbon footprint that you're
couple liters of fossil fuels involved in that, yeah.
On the world, and then I hadn't seen her for a while, and the last time I saw her, she came over. We were hanging out for a little bit, and she brought me all this smoked salmon. And I'm like, oh shit, smoked salmon, like, and she's doing it right, like, she still tries to eat that way when possible, but if she can catch her own fish, if she can buy meat locally or different things locally, like, And that's the way to do it. You don't need to be all one way or the other. You know, just be like fucking smart about it. Like, yeah, you can eat meat, but try to catch it yourself. Try to buy it locally. Be smart about how you're doing, not just like, oh, well, you know, it's like people who just want to tell you about how they don't watch TV. It's the most annoying thing. Like, you're like, oh, you ever watch this show? Well, actually, I don't watch TV. I like